Now suddenly you have a private sector person, and there is nothing wrong in bringing a private sector person as the SEBI, because regulators should have both public and private sector mix of that. People have made enough of money in the last 10 years because the Indian stock market is booming. Till that time, the SEBI chairperson has to step aside, adopting all unfair practices to the extent of money laundering, bringing in funds which are not transparent. But even after she returned to SEBI, her husband joined Singapore, and there is a competition between Ambani and Adani who will become richer. They have got some benefit in the budget announcement, so they will allow this to continue for a year or so. So coming to the quantum of funds, see, this runs into millions of dollars, even billions, because hot money portfolio investment runs into billions, and these are all huge investment overseas farms which are not transparent. That is the worry about whether Indian capital market can absorb this amount of overseas funds without any clarity about the end use of the funds, and who makes the killing and at what cost, and why should SEBI get into this. SEBI's primary purpose was to protect the small investors and to keep the market volatility under check. Suddenly SEBI has got embroiled with the controversy because of the huge conflict of interest. The SEBI whole-time member, Madhabi Puri Buch, during her tenure itself, her husband Dhaval Buch got posted in Singapore in the largest private equity fund called Blackstone. So the conflict of interest started right from the day Madhabi Puri Buch came to SEBI as a whole-time member. So government, knowing this background, still decided to make a departure in her selection to become the chairperson of the Security Exchange Board of India till such time all the SEBI chairmen were from the government sector, either from banking sector or from government of India. You know the famous D.R. Mehta was the chairman. He was the deputy governor of RBI. Then Damodaran, who was the secretary government of India, banking secretary, became chairman. Now suddenly you have a private sector person, and there is nothing wrong in bringing a private sector person as the SEBI, because regulators should have both public and private sector mix of that. But in that case, the conflict of interest should be addressed before a private sector guy comes to hold this position. In this case, the conflict of interest was there right from the time Madhabi Buch was herself a whole-time member, and that continued even after she became the chairperson. Though SEBI has officially clarified that she has recused herself from all the decisions SEBI was taking where there is a conflict of interest, her husband was involved. But that is not enough. There are, and now Hindenburg has come out with a second rejoinder after the Buch couple have given a clarification about their lack of involvement in the so-called Adani or overseas funds. The clarifications itself has raised some questions. In the way they have confessed certain things which Hindenburg has itself pointed out, because the clarification is absent on the number of investments, the quantum of investments the Buch couple has made during the last full term of Madhabi Buch as a whole-time member, and now in the recent time after she became the chairperson of SEBI. So a lot of Pandora's box which will come open once investigation is ordered, but government is not in a mood to restart the investigation because the skeletons will come out, and Supreme Court having already taken a stand that Adani investigation did not find any strong evidence of manipulating the market. It will be difficult for Supreme Court to come out against its own findings. So the lesson out of this episode is very clear. Number one, investigation has to be made, impartial investigation by experts who are not vulnerable to government pressure or pressure from the corporate, because India there is a strong evidence of crony capitalism in the history of our functioning democracy, especially in the last 2-3 regimes. Started with the telecom scandal in the earlier regime, and now continues with all Ambani, Adani dominating the corporate sector. Is a matter of grave concern, and once the credibility of the regulator is in question, it will affect the investment climate. There is a conspiracy theory trying to come in the scene. The capital market people have made enough of money in the last 10 years because the Indian stock market is booming out of proportion with the real underlying sector. So investors do not want to lose out the profit they have made by any further uncertainty in the market. So, but transparency is the key in any investment game, and ultimately who gets the benefit? The large sector, the corporate sector runs away with huge profit, and those who are not investing in the market, very few stocks are invested in Indian market. Indian market, unlike the Western market, is not very deep. Indian market is still a shallow market. Few stocks dominate, and there is a huge scope for manipulation if the regulators are not very, very transparent and strict. The conflict of interest is very much there, despite all the official clarification given by the SEBI chairperson. Government has not come out with a clear statement on this issue. Both the Prime Minister and Finance Minister are keeping quiet, saying that the regulator has clarified the position. That will not satisfy the Indian public. So the government has to come clear. If not a joint parliamentary committee, which has been the demand of the opposition, impartial investigation has to be made, and till that time the SEBI chairperson has to step aside to make it free and fair, and action has to be taken. For this not to happen, Indian market cannot afford to take this kind of huge hot money flowing into our market, and nobody knows where the money comes from and where the money goes. After Madhabi, Puri, Buch came to SEBI, there was a lot of demand from the real sector, investment trust they call it, all the mortgage firms and real estate firms. They were asking the Indian regulator to relax the guidelines so that they will bring in a lot of money to Indian market. Indian market, our interest rates are high compared to the Western market. So a lot of arbitrage of funds flowing into Indian market to take advantage of the higher interest rate. So these guidelines were relaxed during the tenure of Madhabi, Puri, Buch, both as a whole-time member and now as the chairperson of the SEBI. So there is a clear direction towards complicity in the matter, and overseas funds are not very transparent, and most of these farms are floated by Adani. So this has to be put at rest, and investigation has to be done without any further delay. Similarly, SEBI was supposed to take care of the small investors' interest. Now there is a sudden departure from protecting the investor, the small investors, to protect the interest of the rich, affluent, corporate sector who are adopting all unfair practices to the extent of money laundering, bringing in funds which are not transparent. So the major players are the real estate and mortgage sector, and the private equity firms are pumping in money to Indian market. So this is somehow or other not in consonance with the regulator like SEBI, RBI and IRDA. Both husband and wife, they moved into private equity funds in Singapore. And the wife returned back to India when she was offered the whole time member position, which is next to the chairperson of the SEBI. But even after she returned to SEBI, her husband joined Singapore, the largest private equity fund called Blackstone. That itself was irregular. As per the norms, global norms, once a member of the family is involved in the trading activity, stock market activity, the family members have to keep away
from any profit,
any such profit-making authorities. And whatever they invest, there has to be a regular declaration so that public knows where they are putting money, whether they are getting benefit out of the regulation or the employee who is involved in the market.
This amount runs into millions,
billions, because huge amount of money has come into Indian market, and huge amount of profit has been booked by a few people, including some middle class investors. So there is a dilemma that people have become rich during this stock market boom for the last 10 years. But that leads to the increasing gap between the rich and the poor.
So
inequality has widened because rich has become very rich,
more rich,
and they are able to manipulate the system by influencing the politicians to change the rules in their favor. You asked me, the crux of the issue is again, instead of protecting the small time investors, the regulator SEBI, headed by Madhabi, Puri, Buch, has favored the huge multinational private corporate sector, and most of the farms are overseas farms are run by Mr. Adani. BJP government is in a fix now because everybody knows that Ambani and Adani has been funding hugely this government, and there is a competition between Ambani and Adani who will become richer. Every time Ambani overtakes Adani, Adani tries to overtake Ambani. So people go to the extent of saying that certain sector of the government, headed by one very important cabinet minister who is running the commerce industry portfolio, he supports Adani. The Bombay lobby supports Adani because Bombay lobby is in favor of the stock market based in Mumbai, and Delhi lobby, they support Ambani. So this is the Ambani saga going on through the Indian stock market, supported by the regulator who is supposed to regulate the market and protect the small investors. The Congress party has got a lot of information about this, so they are going to raise this issue, national protest. They are demanding a joint parliamentary probe. Government cannot keep quiet, but knowing the way government has handled the earlier Adani saga, it cannot allow the skeletons to come out, and government has just started functioning its third term now. But how long the coalition government continues is to to the extent the coalition partners get benefit. They have got some benefit in the budget announcement, so they will allow this to continue for a year or so. But slowly, if things come out in the open, government will become unstable.